Okay, hey guys. In case you guys haven't heard, I'll be switching over to async workshops now. So today we'll be working on um, data visualization finally. I'll be going over the basics to D3. I will definitely be going over how to make like a simple bar chart, and if I have time, I will try to do maps as well. So yeah, let's get started. I will be using a lot of like knowledge from like the previous React lesson. So um, if you need review, then please view those videos again just to get a refresher. So first things first, we want to oops. First, I need to get to my folder location. Again, this is my first time doing these async videos, so hopefully they won't be too rough. But first I want to create a new project. So if you're using Yarn, you would do yarn create React app, and then I'll call mine D3 demo. Okay, while that's working, we can check out the D3 website and take a look at what they have to offer. So if we go to d3.js, or sorry, d3js.org, we can see what they have. Yeah, so D3 stands for data-driven documents. It's just a way to manipulate the DOM or HTML. You're basically replacing certain elements with like SVGs, which stands for scalable vector graphics, I believe. So, you probably have heard of PNGs and JPEGs, and these are like images based off of raster or pixels. So you can like, when you zoom in a lot, you'll see it can become very pixelated, or if the resolution's off, it will become pixelated. Whereas SVGs are different because they are vectors, which means they are based off of equations. So that means the more you zoom in, it'll still remain clear because all the graphics are calculated off of mathematical equations. So we'll be specifically using it with React because I think most of you guys, that's how you're going to be using D3 is with React, which is a little different. It's not necessarily how D3 was made to be used, but it shouldn't be a problem here. So yeah, main things are like selection. I'll be going over an example of that. But it's a very powerful, super powerful JavaScript library, which I haven't even learned the full potential of. I really just started using it, and I've been playing around with the very basics, but as you can see here, there's a huge variety of things that you can do with them. And it's going to be a big part of your guys' projects, which is why it's so important for me to teach you guys. So let's check in on this. Okay, so we're good. So now we can change directory into that folder. So the first thing we wanna do is, now that we have this project open, we want to delete everything in the source file because all that's just boilerplate. We don't need that. So now we create a new file called index.js. So for all index.js, this is like the entry point of your application. So this is how you would do it. You import React from React as always. You also import React DOM from React DOM. And then we take React DOM and we call the render method. We pass in the app component, which we haven't made yet. And then we have to get element by ID root. So this is the entry point of the application. We'll import app from app for now, and we'll create the app component here. I personally like to keep all my components inside the components folder, or a new folder inside source called components. And I'll be creating the app.jsx file there. Import. Okay, so we need to come back here and change this to /components. Again, if you don't know, dot means the current directory you're in. So index is here. We're currently in the source folder, so it will go into the component folder and then give whatever is an app. So yeah, now we come into app and we do React. From React, I'll be using functional components, or arrow function components to be specific. Export default app. Oops. And then we'll just return H1 that says app for right now, just to see if everything works. So to start it, we do, oops, we'll do yarn start. Okay, there is another thing running on that port, so sorry, 1 second. Let's try that again. Okay, so assuming that works, I'm just going to assume it works for right now. I will create, oh, no, it doesn't work. Cannot, oh yeah, that's because this should not be capitalized. That should work. Cannot resolve components, sorry. That should work. Yep, so that's that. So we'll create a new file. So this one is just gonna be a very simple one. I'm just gonna call the components simple. And by the way, I'm calling all of these files JSX because I use JSX, but you don't actually have to. It's kind of personal preference whether you name it .js or .jsx. So it's really up to you. So for this example, I would just kind of briefly show an example where you can manipulate the DOM using D3. So again, you don't even have to only, you don't have to create just charts with D3. You can actually directly manipulate elements on the DOM. So here's a quick example of that. So simple equals export default simple. So we're first gonna create a div called simple, with ID simple, and then UL is just unordered list. So that's just gonna be a list of bullet points. So we're just gonna have this is a test, and we're gonna copy this 4 times. It's fine. And then we'll import it into our app.jsx. Simple. Perfect. We'll replace app with the simple component. And there we go. That's that. Okay. Now we'll go back to, sorry, that's simple. Oh, we need to save this. Okay, so now we can actually start using a bit of D3. Again, this is a super simple example. But before we do that, we first need to install D3. So we can go first to the documentation and double check what we need to install. So, okay. Yeah, so this is yarn add D3, or npm install D3 if you're using npm. So yarn add D3, and that will take a second, okay? And then now we come up here, and we're going to do import star as D3 from D3. And I don't really know why it's like this, but that's just the way it is. So here's the example I'm going to do. We're going to call it a function. And again, I'm just making the helper function right now. It's not being called anywhere right now, so this code won't run anywhere. But the first thing you need to do is select the element you want to change. So in this case, you can either do .select, which will select the first instance of whatever you're trying to select, or you can do select all, which will select all of the instances in the DOM. So in this case, I want to select all of the list items. So I will do select all li. Now there's a lot of things I can do with this. I will go ahead and replace the text by doing dot text, and I will do, so remember if we take a look here, it says this is a test for all of them. I will replace it with this is not a test. So if we come back here, that did not update for some reason. Maybe we need to reload. Okay. Oh, right, because we haven't called the function. So if you remember from my last workshop, I talked about hooks, and the use effect hook is pretty much, you can think of it as a life cycle method. And if you don't remember what life cycle method is, I talked about it in the video before, but I will briefly go over it again. All components have a life cycle. When it's made, so when it's born, kind of, that's called mounting, and that is when the component gets displayed on the screen. When the state of the component is updated, that's called update. And then finally, when it's removed from the DOM, that's unmounting. So with class-based components, you have component did mount, component did update, and then component will unmount. With functional components, you have to use hooks, and all three of those are just use effect pretty much. So what we want to do is we want to do all of this D3 stuff at the very, very beginning, so when the component is mounted. So the way to do that with hooks is you do use effect, and you pass in a callback function. And then you put these square brackets at the end, so this is an empty array. And if you don't fully understand what this means, it's basically looking for what's called dependencies. So whenever anything in the array changes, it will call the use effect hook again. But in this case, since it's an empty array, it will only run one time, and that's when the component is mounted. So that's why we're using empty square bracket there. So we'll call example here, and now if we go back, yeah, it says this is not a test. So this is a very simple example. In fact, you can actually go in further to do like something like style, color, red. You can come back here and it turns it red. This doesn't seem very useful, but we can now use this to create more complicated charts. And D3 is a very, very, very complex library, extremely complex, but at the same time very powerful. The examples I'm giving today are super, super simple, and I urge you really need to read through the doc, because I can't explain all of the features of D3 in just one video. So I highly urge you to read through the documentation before you really get started on your projects. But this is kind of just a brief overview of what D3 can do. So now, why don't we transition to creating a bar graph? So the idea that I have is, if we come here, we go to covidtracking.com/data/API. You can go there by, I believe you can just do COVID-19 API, and it's the first link. So my idea was I wanted to take this data and make it into a bar graph that we can look at, which would be, pretty cool. So the one we want is current values for all states. So if we open this in a new tab, we can see this huge amount of data. We have each state in alphabetical order. We have the date. We have positive cases, probable cases is null. Yeah. So the one that we really care about are state and positive. So my idea is I would like to create a bar graph that has the state label and goes as far as like this number, the positive number, because that's the number we really care about. So first of all, the first step is we need to get this data into our program. How do we do that? Well, what we can do is make an Axios call, an API call. So I'll take this URL, this endpoint, and the first thing is we actually need to install something called Axios. So we'll do yarn add Axios. So what Axios will allow us to do is very easily make a API call. And Axios makes it super easy. So actually we don't need it in here. I'll create a new component to demonstrate. So we go to components, new file, bar chart, and I'll go ahead and import it in app.js. Bar chart from bar chart, and come here, import React from React, export default. Oh, sorry, one other thing I wanted to go over before I move on. Actually, I'll be going over it here, so it's okay. We'll return a div with ID chart. Okay, that's good. We'll do a draw chart. And we'll do a, let's see here. I think I want to use, just trying to think how I want to do this. Okay, so right when first we need to get the data in. So that's the first thing we need to do. And in order to do that, we need to use Axios. So we want all of the data to load in right when the component is made. So again, we have to use effect to get that data at the very beginning of its life. We don't want the data to come in sometime after. That's useless to us. So we'll do use effect, and then do a callback function, and then again we put that there. So since we're using ES6, we have async await, which makes asynchronous functions super easy to use. So the first thing we have to do is call this async. And async await is not something I'm going to get into here. I would really watch a video on it because it's a lot more complicated than just async await. There's promises, and normally you would do .then. I will, okay, very briefly, what async await allows you to do is certain operations will take time. Like, for example, if you do 1 + 1 as a line for if you set a variable I equal to 1, this will take no time. I mean, it will take time, but in JavaScript's mind, it won't take any time at all to perform. But if you were to do something like get data using Axios, you're getting data from an external source, so that will actually take a set amount of time. No matter how small, it will still take time, which means that if you don't wait for the data to arrive first before moving on, data will just be empty and it will just move on. It won't wait for Axios to finish up. So the way around this is we have to use async await, and pretty much all it does is it'll do this line, it'll wait until the data is received before moving on. So it's very important for asynchronous functions, but this is a very simple way of putting it. I would suggest you, again, watch a video on async await, but this is more of a Java specific topic. So now that we have that, I will also use the use state hook, because I think that'll just make things easier. And actually, before we do that, why don't we just make sure we're receiving the data? So we'll just print out the data and we'll see if we get it. And we haven't imported it into app yet. Oh yeah, we have, but we'll just put it right below. Okay, So now if we go up F12, we'll check the console, see if we actually get it, and we have something here. Let's see if this is the right thing. Yep. And then we have data, which is all of the data we need. It has state, positive cases, that's really all we're looking for. AS. Huh. Actually don't know what's, I don't think that might be an American territory or something, or I'm just brain farting. Arkansas. Anyways. Then we have Georgia. Wow, that's a lot of positive cases. Then you have California. It's, yeah. Anyways, sorry, getting a bit distracted there. But so now we have that data. But as you noticed, we got an object, and what we actually want is this array of data. So we can actually instead do data dot data, because the array is called data. So let's try that again and see if that gives us the correct thing that we want. And yeah, that's exactly what we want. So now we can set the state of the bar chart to call it data set data state. Okay, we'll set data to be data.data, and we can now remove that. Perfect. Now we want to actually call a draw chart. So now what do we do from here? We have our data. It's now set as the state. What can we do now? Well, first we can create an SVG in place of the div with the ID chart. So we'll do let, or let's see, we'll do we'll do let svg equals d3.select. So before, this is what I wanted to mention, before I used li, this will select all the list items in the return statement. This time I want to select an ID. So we do that by doing hashtag chart. Okay. Now this may seem a little weird. Well, this is not too weird. We've selected the chart, and now we're appending an SVG to it. So, and then we'll give it attributes here. So when you append something, the way you change the attributes of whatever you've appended comes after what it is, because this actually returns a reference to what you've appended. Okay. Yeah. So we want to change the attributes of this SVG. Namely, we want to set a height and a width, and we'll actually set constant height and width just to make it more simple. And we want to also be able to have it reflect have it change based on the amount of data you get. So we want to set the width of the attribute, or sorry, of the SVG to W, and then the height to H. Okay, and then just to be a little more fancy, we'll add, again, just like before, this probably should be CSS rather than what I'm doing here, but I'm not going to create CSS just for this. So I would just add on the style tag, and yeah. Oh, also I'll add a bit of margin as well. Margin left 50. Okay. Cool. Let's see what we have. D3 is not defined. Yes, because we have not imported D3, of course. From D3. Okay. So D3 is not defined. Let's refresh. Okay. So we don't have any. Oh, you know what? That's because we didn't change the background color. So of course we're not going to be able to see anything. Background color. So this will be just a light gray. Okay, there we go. Cool. So that's perfect. And you know what? This is kind of annoying me. I'm just going to remove our first example. Don't need it anymore. Or better yet, I'll just comment it out. So now we have our SVG. We want to start putting in data into it. But like, how do we add like the bars and stuff? Well, it's really quite simple. All we have to do is we append rectangles to it. This part might get a bit confusing. So as you remember from before, whenever we want to select elements, we use select or select all. And in this case, I'm going to do rectangle because that's what we're going to add. But you're going to notice there are no rectangles in div. So that means we're selecting nothing. That's partially true. We'll first pass in this data. So this is how you feed the data into D3 is with this data method. So we're just going to pass in the state that we set from the very beginning. And we're going to do something called enter. So let's see if this, yeah. So return the enter selection placeholder nodes for each datum that had no corresponding DOM element in the selection. So this is a pretty good way of explaining it. So we're selecting all rectangles, but there are no rectangles. However, we have 56, I believe it was 56 data points in our array. I'm assuming it's probably US territories. So it's going to see that we have 56, but no DOM elements that say that are called rect. So it's going to create those nodes because you called the enter method. So even though you're not selecting any rectangles, it's actually creating them because you're calling the enter method. So now what we can do is we can append those rectangles. And let's see. Well, we need to set the location, so the X and the Y, and then the height and the width. So for now, we just want to see at least one box show up. That's our goal for right now. So attribute, and then height, we'll set it to 100. Yeah, that's fine. And then attribute width to be 50. And let's see if that shows up at all. Okay, that is kind of weird. Don't know why it's showing up twice. Is that's not supposed to be there, is it? Okay, that was odd. I don't know why that did that. Okay, and now it's not showing up for some reason. So, okay, it might be because, let's see here, data, X, Y, okay, just as a small thing, I'm just going to do fill, and then color tomato. Okay, so it's showing up twice. Still not sure why it's showing up twice. It shouldn't be. Bar chart. Okay. I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna try to name this something else. Chart drawing. Okay. So it's still there. Well, regardless, we'll just work with what we have right now. I don't know why it's showing up twice. It should not be, but so anyways, well, we have a rectangle now, okay, and that one rectangle is drawn 56 times because for every single element, we're pretty much iterating by doing data.enter. We're pretty much iterating through every single one of that. So we don't want that, of course. We want to have one data point or one box for each data point. So the first thing we can do is maybe spread out these different boxes so we can better see it. So rather than hard coding the height and the width, we can actually think about it. do a little bit of math, and think, well, if we have 56 boxes and our width is 1000, then each box should be 1000 divided by 56, right? Because we have 56 elements. We can actually do one better, and we can record the length of the array by doing data dot length. We can also calculate, now this is going to be kind of confusing as well, but just know that I'm just recording the maximum positive value in the array that in the data that we're receiving. So I'm doing array max equals math.max.apply math colon data.map function. Oops. So, I need an extra. There we go. So what I'm doing here is essentially I'm iterating through the data that we have, and at each iteration, it's going to take a state object. That's kind of confusing, not the state of the component, but the actual state, like, you know, Georgia or California, whatever. And it's returning an array of all the number of positive cases. And then, so yeah, it's mapping through every single item in data, it's returning the positive number, and it's creating a new array. And from that, it's picking the max from that array. So then we can get the maximum value, the most number of positive cases in that data, which it's going to be California. But anyways, we now have that. So what we can do now is we can, instead of having the width be just some arbitrary number, we can just do width divided by length. So if you think about it, it will allow 56 bars to fit inside a width of 1000 pixels. So that's exactly what we want. And okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna try to. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Really sorry. I didn't really have the energy nor time to figure out why the hooks weren't working, so I just converted everything real quick to class-based component. And if you're following along, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna create a copy real quick. So if you were, well, okay, sorry. If you were trying to follow along and all of a sudden I had to like switch on you, I will have this in the GitHub. Nope, I don't want to delete it. I want to. It'll be called bar chart template. You can use it. I'm really sorry. But yeah, everything's really the same, except now I have, instead of use effect, I'm using components did mount. I'm using a constructor to set the state in the beginning. Everything else is the same. It is possible with hooks, but I don't have the time right now to debug it and figure out exactly what's going on. So that being said, as you can see, we have one bar here, and it's skinny enough so that 56 of these bars will be able to show up here. But they're all on x equals 1, which we don't want that. Of course, that's not useful to us at all. So we will change x to be the same thing. So if we think about it again, it's going to be, let's see here, it's going to be, we want it to be depending on which index in the array it is, we want it to be the width divided by the length of the array times the index it's currently on. So here's where I'm going to start showcasing the ability to pass callback functions to the attributes. So when we're doing, now that we have data and we use enter, we can actually do callback functions in the attribute, which will, this is how you would normally do it. There's an extra parentheses there. This will cycle through at each iteration through the data. D will refer to one element in that data. So that's how we're actually getting the information from the data. But we can also add on to D as I. So if you know about mapping, that's essentially what this is doing. So the first one will be the element in the array, and the second one will be the index. So we can now return, let's see here, I times the width divided by this dot state dot data dot, oh, no, we can just use length. So if I did this correctly, we should see an entire row of, and we don't for some reason. Okay, what did I do wrong here? Oh, I think it's because that. Okay, a lot of issues going on, but that's okay. Let me just double check to make sure that we're actually getting an I. And while we're at it, just make sure that we're actually getting in length. Oh, okay, it's not even being called. Okay, I was not having this issue before. Sorry, I don't know why I'm running into all these issues now. Okay, let me try one more thing. Oh, I know why. It's because I'm editing the wrong file. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. That was a really silly mistake. Okay, here we go. Let me close this out so I don't mess that up again. So again, callback function, blah blah blah. Return I times parentheses W divided by length. And voila, we have, I believe that should be 56. I'm not going to count that out, but 56 rectangles in a row. Perfect. Except, of course, not yet because it's not reflecting the data that we have. So now what we can do is we can set the height. We set the width already. Now we can set the height to be reflective of the amount of positive cases that it has. So now let's do some thinking again. So the possible values are going to be from 0 to the max number of positive cases. And so keeping that in mind, we want to be able to fit all of that data within the height of the SVG. So what we can do is we can take the data that we have, the data that's being iterated through, in this case the positive number of cases, divided by the maximum value in that array, and then we multiply by the height, and that way all the values will fit within the height of the SVG. So instead of 100, we'll do another callback function. This time we only need the data, and we'll return d.positive, which is the number of positive cases, divided by the array max times h. Now we come over here, and voila, there we go. We have all of the rectangles matching the height, and as you can see, the longest one won't go past this point because we've made sure that the ratio, it's always going to be, the ratio is going to be between 0 to 1, and it's multiplied by the height. So yeah. Now, and again, if this max were to change, if the data were to change, we won't have to recalculate this. This will still fit to the height. And in fact, if we change the height to something like, oh, that's changing the width. Well, we can change the width also. The way we did the width allows us to also fit it all in the data because we take the width into account when we're calculating the width of the box. But what we wanted to do was height. So if I change it to 1,000, it does the same thing. It will fit it to the thing. So I'll actually keep it to 1,000. I like that a little better. So now, well, we have an issue because we don't know which state is which state. So that's not helpful to us. We want to be able to know which state we're looking at. So for that, we'll actually, again, call this on a separate instance. And we'll call, well, first we're going to select all, select all text. And once again, there are no texts, but we're going to use the enter again. And that'll allow us to create the number of texts that we need. Enter, and then append text. Just as a test, I just want to see hello. Okay. Yep, you can see it right there. I don't know if you can see it if the recording's clear enough, but it's poking through just right there. Yeah, just right there. And that's not what we want. So, well, let's first actually bring it down just a bit. 30, just to make sure it's there. So yeah, it's there. So we have that. What we can do is we can line it up with the, before we do that, why don't we actually flip this right side up? Because everything's upside down right now. We could just keep it like this, but I don't really like it. I want it to be right side up. So what I'm gonna do instead is, again, we have to do some more mental math. But the way we do that is, because how SVGs work, the 0, 0 coordinate is up here. You probably already gathered that from what's been going on with this. So what we want to do is we want to move all of these boxes by, the coordinates are measured from the top of the box. We want to move it down by the entire height except the actual length of the box itself. So for example, this one, if we take the top, we want to move it all the way down, but we want to, be a little bit from the top because, we want to keep that gap there. Same thing with this, except in this case, we would just move it down by maybe a pixel, if anything. And so, yeah, that's how we're going to do it. So before we do the text, we'll come up here, we'll do, let's see, y. So we take the height and we subtract the height of the box. And so we can actually just take this right here, copy that over. Am I missing a parentheses? No. Oh, but I do need to make it a callback function. Okay. And I need to return. Okay. Well, now it's breaking again. Okay. Cool. So now everything's right side up. And again, our text is buried there, but that's okay for now. So as you can see, everything's right side up now, and that wasn't too bad. So what we can do now is we do the same thing with the text, and I want it to be floating above all of these data points. I think that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I'll just do that right now. So we've appended the text. They all say hello. And now we'll do attribute. Again, the X is just going to be the exact same as the boxes. So the X, if we come up here, we can just copy it from here. It's going to be that. And we're missing parentheses. Okay. So now it should be spread out. And again, it's stuck at the top, but that's okay. Now we can set the Y to be the same as what we did for the boxes. Or it should be. I'm pretty sure it should be. Okay, D is not defined because I need to create a callback function. Oops. And I forgot to return. And I think I'm missing a parentheses. Oh, I'm missing a... Now what I'm missing? Do I have an... Yeah, I have an extra... Yeah, okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, well now they all say hello, which is not great. So, of course, we want to change that to be... so again, we can do another callback function, and this time we want to return the state. So that should show us all the states. That's the text is really big, so I'm gonna increase the width a little bit so that they can all fit on the screen or fit properly. That's a little better. I could probably decrease the text actually. Let me try to do that. If that doesn't work, then I'm just gonna leave it as is. Font size, oops, 5? Oh, that is tiny. Try 15. Okay, that's good enough, and we can actually decrease this back down to 1,000. Perfect. That's looking a little better. And that's honestly it. Trying to think if there's anything else that I missed here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, one thing I do want to do is actually increase this a little bit by 5. So it's not touching the bars. Oh, right. Yeah, I forget. When you add to the y coordinates, it'll go down because that's how it works. So yeah, and then this is a little cutoff. So I will try to... I will add... I'll just add 5 to this. Or maybe, let's see, we'll add 30 to that. See if that fixes it. Okay, well, it didn't fix it. There's probably a way to fix that. But anyways, yeah, that's a very simple example of how you can take data and display it with D3. This is a very, very simple example with just some boxes, and you're just changing the height and the width of the box. But you can do things like create maps, and I can show some libraries that can do that, but I won't show them in this video right now. With something like this, you can create really amazing maps where you can hover over them and they have tooltips, and then you can have different projections of the maps as well. This is all built based off of D3. With D3 Geo in mind. It makes it a lot different because this is super much more high level than just using D3 alone, so it makes it a lot more simple. But it's super powerful, and this is all based off of D3, and it can do many other things as well. So yeah, I cannot go over all the features of D3, so I just gave a very brief and simple example, but I urge you, please go check out the docs and read through that stuff yourself, and it will be very helpful in that. So the last thing is, I just want to let you guys know that, again, my Slack is always open. My the Calendly is always open, so please schedule time if you found any of these things confusing, or if you find that React is kind of confusing, or even if you've been assigned a project, a task for your project, and you need help working on it. I'm your guy. You can ask for help, mostly if you're for data viz, which if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you are. But regardless, I can also help on your project because that's part of my responsibility as well, to help on projects. So yeah, that's it for this workshop. Next week, I'm not really sure what I want to do yet. If you have any ideas, please send them over because I still need to figure that out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Yeah, hope you guys have a good week.